A Light from the Past, Chapter 6, First Part. Anyone who knew Dee could well imagine the scene where a bloody mist hung in the air. However, the blood sprayed from the hunter. Duke Dandorian's sword had quite clearly slashed Dee open, from the right shoulder to the left lung. Anyone would have recognized that the fight was over. The proof of that was the way Dandorian radiated delight from every inch of his body. But rather than topple as he should have, Dee made a great bound. What? As the Duke stood there in the wide, haughty stance of a temple guardian, a stark flash sank into his chest. From mid-air, Dee had hurled a rough wooden needle. However, the Duke's shoulder quaked with laughter. Not surprisingly, Dee dropped to one knee when he landed on the grass, some 5 yards away. And from there he saw something bizarre. The needle he'd hurled had stopped about 4 inches shy of the Duke. Wrapped around it to halt its deadly flight were bandages steeped in blood and pus. There was more than just one bandage covering Dandorian's body. His face, hands, feet, and torso were all bound in multiple strips, the ends of which weren't secured but fluttered in the wind. It was simple enough to see that 2 of them were wound about Dee's projectile. But in light of the speed with which it had been traveling, that seemed impossible. These strips of cloth guard me from any and all attacks. A cloth fortress, if you will. Wait, Dee. Cease your pointless struggling, for I now come to tear you to pieces. Perhaps the Duke had entirely forgotten his deadly beckoning power now, but the eyes to be glimpsed from between the bandages gave off a blood light of hate and anticipation. Treading across the grass, the Duke began his walk over to a foe dredged up from his past. Dee didn't move from where he touched down, and the blood spilling from his shoulder struck the black earth and green grass like a veritable torrent, never stopping for a second. And now he got right to his feet. The Duke stopped in his tracks. He was stunned to see Dee's taste for battle hadn't waned in the least. The noble's impressive abilities to attack and defend gave him wholehearted confidence. With the left hand he extended toward Dee, make another deadly beckoning to the bloodied hunter. Dandorian started to take another step forward, but his legs suddenly bent at an angle. Before he could fall lengthwise, a hair-raising cry of agony from the mouth beneath the bandages was broadcast to the world. This is too. Damnation. The time for battle. Dee, we'll meet. His voice cut out there, and the Duke's body fell onto the grass. Or rather, it crumpled. By the look of things, all that remained there was a mound of clothes and bandages. Dee pressed his left hand to the wound. Once the massive bleeding stopped, he went and stood over what the Duke had shed. Lifting one of the bandages with the tip of his sword, he put it in the grip of his left hand. "They're just regular bandages," the hoarse voice said. "But there's nothing normal about this pus and blood. The strange voice made further retching sounds, and the left hand vomited up fluid. It wasn't blood, but rather clear, like glass. "Cut me loose, hurry!" Before the hand could vomit a second time, Dee's blade flashed out. His left hand fell to the ground, where a human face quickly formed in its palm. Its features were twisted by horrible pain, and fluid gushed again from its nose and mouth. In a voice like a death rattle, it wheezed, Such poison. For him, living must be hell. He lives to have his revenge on you, Dee. Him and his wife both need to die. And then all five fingers clutched madly at the sky, before unexpectedly going limp, and the face began fading from the palm. Saying nothing, Dee picked up his left hand and tucked it in a pocket inside his coat. A faint darkness surrounded his body. The day was beginning to dim, and before long in one section of the forest, where a stir from the push of darkness could be heard, a tall figure in black looked terribly solitary. Dee, now you are truly alone. Look down at your feet. You aren't even casting a shadow. How much longer? Meg asked. Danae replied, approximately 10 minutes. Though it looked as if he were working the vehicle's control stick. In truth, his hand was merely resting on it. The vehicle was avoiding the trees and rocks ahead all on its own. Meg was deeply impressed. She wondered if a vehicle like this, that moved without touching the ground, might not work on the seas as well. If it did, fishing would become remarkably easy. She could make trips out to the fishing ground and back, or catch up to schools of swift fins quickly, and it would be easy enough to keep stormworms from ramming her craft. Girl, Danae said, I have a name. It's Meg. Very well then, Meg. What brings you to the island? I already told you. I'm here to rescue the folks you and yours snatched. That much I've heard. What I wish to know is the real reason. I told you. Infuriated, the girl was just about to give the nobleman a tongue lashing when his words hit her like a physical blow. You wish to be immortal, am I wrong? You've got to be kidding me, Meg exclaimed, adding that he was an idiot. When the time comes, everyone gets weak and dies. That's normal and natural. When you're human, that's your fate. Just the thought of living forever gives me the willies. It gives you the willies. It means it frightens me. Why is immortality frightening? It means living forever without pain, or the fear of death. I'm not afraid to die. Meg snapped back. Imagine day in and day out, listening to the roar of the dark sea in the middle of the night. You get the feeling all the seas in the world are snarling out there. The roll and crash is fine, but then suddenly, one of them rolls far, far away. And by one of them, I mean a portion of the world's seas is suddenly far off, like you'd think it had gone to the ends of the earth. Only you can be sure it hasn't vanished. Listen real close, and this time you'll hear it coming. Its roar creeps closer, murky, real murky, until you think, oh no, here comes the hell wave. And this is the end of me and my village. And this incredibly tall mountain of a wave is going to swallow everybody and kill us. You can't sleep. You're scared. So scared all night that when you're a little kid, you cling to your mother's breast. But when you're bigger, you live in bed alone and cry. You don't ever want to put out to sea again. And once you're out on the waves, it's hell beneath the ship's planks. You run into war sharks that can poke a hole through an iron hull, krakens that are about 100 times the size of this island, and dancer rays that whip up giant whirlpools. Have you ever seen the sky from the bottom of a whirlpool, half a mile wide and twice as deep? When you do, you're not supposed to look at what's all around you. Bones and pieces of ships, sucked down centuries ago, are spinning around in those sheer walls of blue-black water. Even though the skeletons have gone to pieces, their cave-like eyes meet ours and they call to us. Come, come to us. Join us, they say. 7 times Dad and me have looked up at the sky from the bottom of a whirlpool. Such a little spot of blue. But that's the world where we live. White clouds sailing by, and gulls flying around. I want to get back there. I want to live to see that sky again. And with that determination, I've made it back. And yet, you know, sometimes I'll suddenly think back on those whirlpools and kind of miss them. If one of those times the walls of water came crashing down, I could stay there under the water with all those bones, and that seems like it'd be a real happy life. I'm not afraid of death anymore. You get that? I think it'll be real easy and peaceful. And going to the end of time without dying would just be exhausting. Meg had let out all that in one burst. Denai fell silent. That did the trick, she thought. But she was mistaken. In order to know death, you must know life. You merely long for death as a rejection of life. He said it so matter-of-factly. Meg bared her teeth, shouting, I'm not running away from life, and I'm not tired either. I don't need any monster telling me how it is. Monsters we may be, but we were your masters. We made exhaustive studies of human beings, both your bodies and your psyches, though I would not say everything was left entirely clear. Of course not. How could a noble ever understand the human heart? The girl shuddered as she said the words, and at the end, they were punctuated by an impact. Denai twisted his body around. Blood sprayed into the air, stained red from the neck down. Meg screamed. And perhaps it was her cry that made the vehicle go crazy. Meg and Darjand were pitched forward, sailing through the air. The girl knew they'd done 2.5 cartwheels before hitting the ground. Her right shoulder came to rest against something strangely soft. Meg's brain was numb by the impact, and she waited to give it time to recover. A few seconds sufficed. Turning around, she asked the groaning Darjand if he was okay. I'm all right. Sure felt that, though. Hang in there. You're ageless and indestructible, after all. No. You heard what the nobleman said. I just don't get any older. So what happened? The vehicle and Lord Denai got shot. Shot? By whom? I don't know. But when Lord Denai was sent flying, I heard a gunshot off in the distance. And we know our ride must have got hit, too, because of the way it spun all of a sudden. A noble, I guess. One of their underlings. I've never seen them use firearms, though. I think I might know who it was, Meg said, helping Darjand to his feet. Just then, the ground trembled. Huh? A certain foreboding made the two of them stop cold, like they were made of iron. Their eyes dropped to their feet. The soft ground that had spared them both looked for all the world like a normal, expensive dirt and grass, but it sank appreciably. You know, this looks like a trap, Meg whispered to the former teacher. It's a pitfall for trapping enormous creatures. The earlier group of settlers must have made it. Any more weight than we've got on it now and we're goners. The pair began slowly walking across it. bound for firmer ground. Just 3 more feet, Meg told D'Argent. Hang in there. I know. With their next step, there was a sound like something snapping, and the ground subsided massively. Feeling like her blood was about to freeze, Meg leapt. The instant they touched down on solid ground, a scream rang out from D'Argent. "Suck it up!" and the girl shouted, turning around. Their former location had been transformed into a bowl-like depression in the earth. It was swallowed up without a sound, leaving only a colossal hole. First part, end.